Hey friends, hope you're doing well. Hope you got your coffee. I got my coffee. Hope you got coffee if you want it. It is an absolutely beautiful day here in Indiana. I mean, it's chilly, it's a little bit cold, but man, it feels so good. Nice breeze. I'm out here on the porch. I was thinking about Loretta Lynn when she passed away a couple days ago, and I was thinking, man, I don't remember her playing in Indianapolis. I know it had to have happened quite a few times. So I thought to myself, I'm going to look through some old newspaper archives and see if I can find some reviews or something. So I started looking, and I found a lot of stuff around Indiana. I knew she was, her mother moved to Wabash, Indiana a long, long time ago, and that's kind of where Crystal Gale is from or was raised, in Wabash, Indiana. And I saw a couple mentions of that. I saw a concert review for a show at the State Fairgrounds Coliseum, and it sounded like it was kind of lackluster. I think that was 1970. I don't remember. It was 70 or 71. And then there was another one for 70 or 71. There was an ad for a package show coming through that it was Waylon Jennings and Loretta Lynn and a few other stars, but like the very top billing was Bill Anderson. I thought that was pretty amazing and great. And my buddy Tom Yutz is friends with Bill Anderson, so I sent that to Tom and said, look at this, man. He had top billing over these other stars. But as I was looking for old mentions of her, I started stumbling across these stories about her organizing a benefit for the survivors, the family of miners who died in a mining disaster in Hyden, Kentucky. And I just started seeing a lot of stories about that. And I thought, well, this is interesting. What is this? And I knew about the Hyden, I knew about this mining disaster. What it is, I'll a little bit about it. They call it the Hurricane Creek mine disaster. It occurred in 1970, shortly afternoon, and resulted in the deaths of 39 men. There was one survivor, and it was, I mean, a horrible, horrible story, but it was exactly 1 year to the day after they passed a law about mining safety. But the Bureau of Mines was so underfunded and understaffed, they couldn't keep up with the inspections. So this mine was operating, you know, it was a very, very unsafe environment, and they were breaking laws, and they didn't care. You know, the owner of the mine did not care. It kept sending these men in there, and they had a terrible disaster, and these people died. And Loretta Lynn decided there were all of these orphan children, you know, or children without fathers and wives left over, and she was going to try to raise money for them. So she talked to over 50 country stars. She put together a concert, and she talked to over 50 country stars to pay their own ways there and back to come to Louisville and play a concert that would benefit these miners. And as I started looking, there were these newspaper stories from all over the country. She was doing a bunch of interviews. AP and UPI were sending out a bunch of different things, but man, she was in newspapers all over the country talking about this. And these newspapers weren't really covering the mining disaster to begin with, because it's this thing that happened in this tiny town in Kentucky. And why would the people of Phoenix care about that, you know, even though they should? But Loretta Lynn, you know, was a famous person and used her stardom to try to get people to know about it. And it was just kind of a funny, interesting thing to stumble across. And I mean, I'm sure this is not completely unknown. People know about that she did this, but I didn't know about it. And I sent some newspaper clippings that I found to my buddy Charles Charles Spivey in Louisville. And he's just a few years younger than me. Great guy, dear friend. And it's one of those people, if anybody cared about this, he would. And he works at WFPK, which is a great radio station in Louisville. You guys should listen to them online sometime. Great station. And I just sent him, said, man, do you know about this? And he's like, no, I didn't know about this. And I was like, you guys ought to talk about this on the radio and say this concert happened. But I'm going to, just other quick thing about the disaster. I read that the owner of the mine, when he showed up on the site, there was a judge there who was an activist who had helped pass the law, the mining safety law that went into effect a year earlier that they weren't able to enforce. And when the owner of the mine showed up, this judge beat the hell out of the mine owner, like bloodied. The guy had to be carried away or whatever, and no charges were ever pressed against him. And I'm not a fan of violence in any way, but that paints a little bit of a picture right there. So there's an ad that I found. This is one of the first things I found. It says country music. This is in the Louisville Courier Journal. It's country music benefit show will broadcast nationally by WSM, home of the Grand Ole Opry, to benefit the Loretta Lynn Hyden Foundation Miners Disaster Fund, 6 p.m. March 1st, 1970. At the Kentucky State Fair. These are the people who they're advertising that will play. Loretta Lynn, George Jones, the Wilburn Brothers, Conway Twitty, Charlie Louvin, Osborne Brothers, Webb Pierce, Roy Acuff, Bill Monroe, Del Reeves, Tom T. Hall, Mel Tillis, Peggy Sue and Sonny Wright, Jaylee Webb, Pee Wee King, Crystal Gale, George Morgan, Billy Grammer, Grandpa Jones, Bobby Bear, Ernest Tubb, Jim and Jesse, Tammy Wynette, Wendy Bagwell, the astronaut Alan Bean, Red Stewart, Bud Wendell, Bud McCain, and Connie Smith. And they will all play at their own expenses. That is a hell of a show right there. That's one hell of a show. So this is an article when Loretta Lynn's still trying to get the word out for this benefits show. This is in the Louisville Courier Journal. It's by Patty Lee, but this was sent out by Associated Press to a lot of different people. These are some quotes from Loretta Lynn. So there's one thing I feel this benefit show can do, the singer said. Back there in the hills, that's all there is, to work in the mines. I'd like to see these kids go through school and college and leave the coal mining country and have a better life and not have to go into the mines. Miss Lynn, the former Loretta Webb, who still talks and sings with a strong mountain accent, wrote her hit song Coal Miner's Daughter as the story of her own early life in Appalachia. I grew up in Butcher Holler in Johnson County, she said. My daddy was a coal miner for 16 years. My husband worked the mines for a while, and his daddy was a miner for 45 years. 45 years. A lot of my friends got killed in the mines. I walked past where they were bringing out the men when there had been an accident. I remember all of the women and the children standing around, mostly crying. It's just awful memories. Mommy told me once that each time Daddy would leave, she'd wonder if he'd ever come back from the mines. That's Loretta Lynn. So it sounds like the concert was a huge success. And here's something from the Louisville Courier Journal. Tuesday morning, the morning after this benefit, it says nearly 50 country music stars, some of them sons and daughters of coal miners themselves, poured into Louisville's Freedom Hall last night to urge the United States and Canada to open up your hearts and give to the widows and orphans of 38 dead Kentucky coal miners. Some 12,000 country music fans began arriving at 5 p.m. for the Mammoth Loretta Lynn benefit show to raise funds for the survivors of the men killed in the December 30th coal mine explosion at Hyden, Kentucky. The families of the dead miners, 104 children and their parents and other relatives, arrived in school buses at 6 p.m. and were greeted at the door by Miss Lynn and Governor Louis B. Nunn. There's a little mention here from the Osborne Brothers. I thought this was pretty interesting. Two performers had specific memories of the little Leslie County town where the post-Christmas mine tragedy occurred. Sonny and Bobby Osborne, the Osborne brothers, mandolin and banjo pickers of the bluegrass persuasion, were born in a hilltop cabin there and returned to Hyden every year for a concert at Leslie County High School. The population of Hyden was 600 when our family left in 1941, and it's 600 now, said Sonny Osborne, unless they just haven't changed the sign. It was an awful thing to happen. We were on the road when we heard about it, and we called Dad from Florida the next day. I still haven't seen a casualty list, but we may have had some distant relatives in that mine. Every time we go down there, I meet 15 or 20 cousins. Says the Osborne Brothers played a performance. The Osborne Brothers played a performance in Oklahoma City Sunday night and drove almost nonstop to Louisville for the benefit. We would have gone through anything to get there, Sonny said. I hope they get $3 million for those kids. They could sure use it. And from everything I've read, it sounds like it was a huge success. It'd be great to, some of those kids are alive today. It would be great to find out just their perspective on that, and just see where their lives have gone since then. But one thing I want to turn this back to, one of those performers that played that benefit was Tom T. Hall. You heard me read his name a minute ago. Man, I absolutely love Tom T. Hall. So whenever there's an excuse to talk about Tom T., I bring it up. But Tom T. Hall has a song called Trip to Hyden, and I always knew what it was about, but there were parts of it that I never thought about or didn't make sense. But Tom T. Hall went down to the side of the disaster there and met people. I think he met the one man who survived and talked to him, and I think that's who is the gentleman he keeps referring to in this song that he's talking to. But and he wrote a song about that, and there's certain lines in here that just kind of give me chills a little bit. But past the hound dogs and some diamond-neckered chickens, temporary-looking houses with their lean and bashful kids. Every 100 yards a sign proclaimed that Christ was coming soon, and I thought, well, man, he'd sure be disappointed if he did. That's a hell of a thought right there. And there's a line in here where he says, the old man introduced the Undertaker, who seemed refreshed despite the kind of work I know he did. We talked about the pretty lady from the Grand Ole Opry, and we talked about the money she was raising for the kids. I've heard that line 300 times in my life, and I wonder who he's talking about. Pretty lady from the Grand Ole Opry. He's talking about Loretta Lynn. And it's funny how all these years later of hearing this song for most of my life, it comes around because I took a deep dive and started looking at old newspaper articles. But in the last line of his song, which I strongly urge you to go listen to, you never need an excuse to go listen to Tom T. Hall, but there's just a lot to Tom T. Hall. That's a very deep individual in a lot of ways, but it says, well, I guess the old man thought we were reporters. He kept reminding me of how his simple name was spelled. Some lady said they're worth more money now than when they was living, and I'll leave it there because I suppose she told it pretty well. That's a cold, hard, facts of life line. I don't feel comfortable reading that. It makes me feel weird to say those words out loud, that those kids would be worth more, now than if they were living. But Tom T. Hall put that into a song, and I don't know. That had to just cut through some people at the time. Cuts through me now. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, and I urge you to go look up information about the Hyden mining disaster, and go listen to Tom T's song, go listen to Loretta Lynn, and be glad that we're not miners. And if you guys or anybody out there works in the mines, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Much love to you.